Hello everyone, I am Phil Belia and I'm with Jan Kirk Amparado, Irish Lastema, Jayan Mayoroyan, and Shalme Kitani to talk all about American literature, The Great Gatsby by Francis Scott Fitzgerald. Our intended learning outcomes. After a thorough discussion and deliberation, the students are expected to perform the following with a 75% accuracy. First is the student will identify the elements of the novel The Great Gatsby by Francis Scott Fitzgerald. The second is the student will demonstrate understanding on what is the novel trying to convey. And the third is the student will critique the literary work The Great Gatsby using the four literary critical theories. The background of the literature. Francis Scott K. Fitzgerald's novel The Great Gatsby, set in the Roaring Twenties in 1922 and published in 1925, chronicles the narrative of one-man quest for the American dream. The Great Gatsby is a tragic love story, yet it's most known for being a scathing critic of the American dream. Throughout the Jazz Age, the novel gives a critical social history of America during the Prohibition era. Fitzgerald's fictitious story vividly depicts the age, which is famed for the jazz music, economic prosperity, flapper culture, libertine morals, rebellious youth, and more. Many of these societal threads in the 1920s are used by Fitzgerald to convey his story, from small details like beating the automobiles to larger subjects like his allusions to both leggings. Both leggings is an illegal copy of a video or live performance. So by setting a sympathetic plotline against the historical framework of the most raucous epic in U.S. history, Fitzgerald informs his readers about the hedonistic society of the Jazz Age. It sped along under its own power, fueled by massive filling stations brimming with cash. As a result, The Great Gatsby is Fitzgerald's attempt to express his mixed sentiments about the Jazz Age, an epic whose theme he would later consider as evoking events in his own life. The circumstances of Fitzgerald's youth are reflected in The Great Gatsby. He was a young Minnesota from the Midwest. He attended Princeton, an Ivy League school like the novel's narrator, who attended Yale. Fitzgerald, who was 19 at the time, met Henevra King, a 16-year-old socialite with whom he fell in love. Because of his lower-class standing, Henevra's family discouraged him from courting their daughter, and her father allegedly advised him that poor lads shouldn't dream of marrying affluent girls.
And next is the elements of the story. First is the characters. Nick Carraway, the first-person narrator, a Yale University alumnus from Midwest and a World War I veteran. He is easygoing and somewhat optimistic. He ultimately despairs of the decadence and indifference of Eastern life and returns to the West. Jay Gatsby, originally James or Jamie Gutz. The protagonist, a young, mysterious millionaire with shady business connection, later revealed to be a bootlegger. He is originally from North Dakota. Daisy Buchanan, an attractive though shallow and self-absorbed young debutante and socialite from Louisville, Kentucky, identified as a pluffer. She is Nick's second cousin and the wife of Tom Buchanan. Thomas or Tom Buchanan, a millionaire who lives in Egg and Daisy's husband. Tom is an imposing man of muscular build with a husky tenor voice and arrogant demeanor. Next is Jay Baker, Jaden Beaker, an amateur golfer with a sarcastic streak and an aloof attitude, and Daisy's Buchanan's longtime friend. She is Nick Carraway's girlfriend for most of the novel, and though they grow apart towards the end. George B. Wilson, a mechanic and owner of a garage. His wife, Myrtle Wilson, and Tom Buchanan, who describe him as so dumb he doesn't know he's alive. They both dislike him. Myrtle Wilson, George's wife, and Tom Buchanan's mistress. Myrtle, who possesses a fierce vitality. He is desperate to find refuge from her disappointing marriage. She is accidentally killed by Gatsby's car. She mistakenly thinks Tom is still driving it and run after it. Um, Next is the Meir Wolfsheim, a Jewish friend and a mentor of Gatsby, described as a gambler who fixed the 1919 World Series.
So the next element of this story is the plot. So Jay Gatsby, named as James Getz, was born from the poverty-stricken family. He met the very rich and very privileged Daisy Buchanan before shipping out to fight in World War I. Daisy marries Sam Buchanan, a wealthy and honest guy, while he's away. Gatsby worked tirelessly over the next 5 years to collect enough money to reclaim Daisy. With the help of Nick Carraway, he is eventually reunited with her. He's swaying her. He almost persuaded her to flee with him. Gatsby loses Daisy in a series of terrible events and is eventually shot by Tom Buchanan's mistress husband. Finally, Nick Carraway, the narrator, goes away disillusioned and enraged. So the next elements is settings is egg, which is the air, the valley of ashes, which is the earth, egg, which is the water, and New York City, so that's the fire. Next elements is a theme. So money and materialism. In this story, everyone in the novel is money obsessed. So under relates to society and class, the novel shows clear distinction between the kind of money you have, which is the old money or inherited, and the new money, which is earned. Next is the American dream. American dream is the idea anyone can make it in America. For example, which is to gain fame, fortune, and success through enough hard work and determination. Next is love, desire, and relationship. Ethics, and there is this, which is ethics and morality. The novel is full of bad behaviors like lying, cheating, physical abuse, crime, and finally murder. And the next is the mutability of identity. Mutability just means subject to change. So next is the conflict of this story. So the conflict of this story is the man versus man and the man versus the society. So next is the atmosphere of the story. So largely dark, optimistic, and vapid.
The summary. Nick Carraway moves to the East Coast and worked as a bond trader in Manhattan. He reconnects with his cousin Daisy Buchanan and her husband Tom in East Egg and meets his friend Jaden Baker. Tom introduced Nick to Myrtle Wilson, his mistress. Myrtle is married to George Wilson, who owns and operates a petrol station in a City Queens neighborhood. Tom, Nick, and Myrtle travel to Manhattan, where she throws a little party and Tom punches her in the face. He then meets Jay GATSBY, a wealthy man who lives in a giant mansion that throws wildly extravagant parties every weekend. The latter introduced him to his business partner named Mayor Wolfsheim, a gangster. Nick starts to build relationship with Jordan, making him find out that Gatsby and Daisy, his cousin, were deeply in love 5 years ago, and that Gatsby is dying to see her again. Nick helped Gatsby to woo Daisy. Thereafter, Gatsby and Daisy have an affair. In one of Gatsby's party, Tom finds out that most of Gatsby's money came from bootlegging. Daisy and Gatsby are planning how to tell Tom and Daisy is leaving him that they booked a suite at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan, where numerous of secrets are being revealed. Tom accused Gatsby as bootlegger. Daisy is in love with Gatsby that she's not in love with Tom from the beginning, which is not true love. Daisy and Gatsby's affair is over and she chooses Tom. While driving Gatsby's car, Daisy accidentally killed Myrtle by hitting her with a car. Nick, Tom, and Jordan investigate the death of Myrtle. Gatsby was accused to be the culprit and was taking all the blame, hoping that Daisy would come back to him. However, the latter still chooses Tom. Nick breaks up with Jordan. Gatsby tells Nick his story that he met and fell in love with Daisy, but Daisy married Tom before he could get home from World War I. Gatsby has been obsessed with getting Daisy back. The next day, Gatsby was killed by George Wilson, Myrtle's husband, and then the latter shot himself. The Buchanan's and Myrtle's case is left out of the murder-suicide investigation report. In Gatsby's funeral, Nick looks for the people that is known to be friend of Gatsby, but no one responds, even Mayor. At the end, Gatsby's father attended his funeral. Nick decided to return to his hometown in the Midwest after becoming disillusioned with his experience of the East Coast.
Next is the reflection. The Great Gatsby is a story of an American dream which concerned a young man whose name is Gatsby. The story is about the difficulty of recovering the past and possibly altering one's future. Gatsby is a wealthy man since he was a successful person. In life, we envy those people who we think that has everything, the fame, money, and power. But in fact to them, it does not matter since they are lonely. We believe that self-assurance stemmed from his wealth. In the end, Gatsby did not get anything. He could not get the AC despite having a lot of money. He even died as a result of his action. To summarize, we gained a great deal from this book. This is one thing about Gatsby. On the surface, he appears to be brilliant. He is, nonetheless, a lonely individual. People can be envious of wealthy, have their own troubles. As a result, when we see anything, we think on its underlying significance rather than appearance. Next is the author's biography. Francis Scott K. Fitzgerald. He was born on September 24, 1896, St. Paul, Minnesota, U.S., and died on December 21, 1940, sa Hollywood, California. He is American short story writer and novelist famous for his depictions of the jazz age, the 1920s. His most brilliant novel being The Great Gatsby, 1925. A hero of his father tradition that includes the author of The Star-Spangled Banner. He became a prominent figure in the literary life of the university and made lifelong friendships with Edmund Wilson and John Bishop. This Side of Paradise, his first novel, 1920, a revelation of the new morality of the young made Fitzgerald famous. The Beautiful and Dumb, 1922, describes a handsome young man and his beautiful wife who gradually degenerate into a shop-worn middle age while they wait for the young man to inherit a large portion. Ironically, they finally get it when there is nothing of them left worth preserving. In 1924, they moved to Rivera where Fitzgerald described the society in his last novel, Tinder is the Night, and modeled its hero on Gerald's Murphy. After their uh, After their arrival in France, he completed his most brilliant novel, The Great Gatsby. All of his divided nature is in this novel. The naïve Midwesterner, afar with the possibilities of the American dream in its hero, J. Gatsby, and the compassionate Yale gentleman in its narrator, Nick Carraway. For the next decades, he became Beau's hound. In 1930, his wife Zelda suffered mental breakdown and had never fully recovered until 1932, making him not finish his last novel, Tinder is the Night, until 1934. In October 1939, he began a novel about Hollywood, The Last Tycoon. The career of its hero, Monterey Star, is based on that of the producer Irving Talbridge, uh, and he died of a heart attack with his novel only half finished, and he was 44 years old. So that's all of our report, and thank you so much.